Ready to go live.
Right. You're going to go live. Yeah.
We're live now.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wonderful. Hello, my name is Tina Augustus, president of the Chicago West Side Chamber of Commerce. And today I'm joined with Valerie Leonard, founder of nonprofit Utopia, a capacity building ecosystem serving nonprofit founders and executive directors with over 30 years of sector experience. Valerie has helped nearly 1,000 leaders raise over $100 million through her proprietary frameworks. We're here today because in just a few days, she's hosting something that could change the trajectory of your nonprofit dream. And I wanted you to hear directly from her why it matters. And I formulated some questions here that I'm going to ask Valerie. And so, Valerie, you've been in and around the nonprofit sector for 3 decades. What made you want to build something specifically for people who are just starting out before they filled a single form?
Yes. Operative word. I've been around, right, a while. I've seen some things, right? I've seen people who want to do the work and felt overwhelmed by the legal burdens. They fill out forms using common sense, and we find out very quickly that common sense doesn't really help very much when you are starting out
Mm,
filling out those
okay.
forms, and you're nodding like you know exactly what I'm talking about. You
Definitely.
start off as you're like, well, what part of mission don't you understand? But nowhere does the word mission enter when you're starting a nonprofit, right? So just helping people to navigate that maze of government bureaucracy, seeing people who want to do the right thing, but not understanding that the paperwork, if you don't fill it out correctly, can put you
Mhm,
in awkward positions, sometimes jail, right? So I just wanted to
true.
make sure that we can build the capacity of
Mhm,
people in our communities to do the right thing, do good in the hood, right?
yeah. So now we're streaming live. What platforms? I know we're on StreamYard, and then what other platforms? Because I was trying to find you on Facebook.
Yeah, yeah. We're on Facebook, Valerie F. Leonard. I'm sorry, Valerie Leonard on Facebook,
Okay.
Nonprofit Utopia on Facebook, Valerie F. Leonard on LinkedIn, and Nonprofit Utopia on YouTube. So we're multi-streaming right
Mhm.
now.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. And then are you on YouTube or any other? This is so that the listeners will be able to uh, find you.
Yes, yes. So we're on YouTube, Nonprofit Utopia. We're
Hmm.
on LinkedIn, and with LinkedIn, that's my personal account,
Hmm.
Valerie Leonard,
Got
and Facebook, my personal account, Valerie Leonard, as well as Facebook, Nonprofit Utopia.
okay, doke. Wonderful. Okay, now we're going to get down to business. I have some questions to ask to help our listeners kind of get sort of like a little bit more information on what the workshops entail.
Hmm.
What's the biggest mistake you see aspiring nonprofit founders make before they even start the paperwork? I think I kind of asked that, and you kind of
Yeah,
shared a little bit about that.
yeah,
Mhm.
but the good thing is there's more than one biggest mistake, right? I can think of several off the top of my head. So
Mhm.
we talked about the fact that using common sense to fill out these forms, that's a huge mistake. It's a recipe for delay. There's certain language that you absolutely have to plagiarize word
Yes.
for word if you're going to get tax exempt status.
Mhm.
It's important to realize that just because your mission statement says X and the state of Illinois allows Y, just because that is so, doesn't necessarily mean that your paperwork is going to pass muster with the IRS. And most of us are not walking around with the state codes in our brains, right?
Right, right.
Another mistake people make, I think, is it seems to make sense to use friends and family when you're starting out, but that also is a recipe, not necessarily for disaster, even though it can be because it does cause a conflict of interest. But the IRS is interested in, family relationships. They're interested in business relationships that look like they're a little bit incestuous. So making sure that there are no conflicts of interest on your board, making sure that you don't even give the appearance that your organization has people who will profit at the expense of the community. So
Mhm.
things like that, are very important. Sometimes we walk into things very innocently that can cause us a lot of problems. Another mistake that people make is trying to solidify political support, partisan political support
Mhm.
from people as they develop their organizations. And I'm going to ask you, from your experience, what are some of the things that you've seen, Tina?
As far as things that need to be done before starting a nonprofit,
Yeah.
well, some of the mistakes I've seen people make was forming, not even getting their articles
Hmm.
incorporated, and filing with the state the name of the organization. They just create a name and they just go on
Straight
and
to the
give.
IRS.
Yeah. Yes. Some don't even do that. Some don't even go to the IRS. They just go ahead and give it a name. They place it on the T-shirts. For example, basketball organizations, they recruit youth and the parents, and they start holding competitions before they even form or
Hmm.
get their organization formed through the state. So
Right.
I've experienced that and had to help them with their articles of incorporation and the bylaws and things like that.
And the
Yeah.
late fees and the
Yep.
penalties.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And Tina, you've always been really, really good for cleaning up other people's mess, right? That's a gift. Most
Yes,
people don't
I
want to
I
do
have seen some of the worst, and some people, just kind of, made a mistake and skipped a few steps.
it.
Yeah.
And another mistake I see too, we make the assumption that just because it's nonprofit, one, we don't make money at these things. Everything we do, even charity, is going to cost money.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yes.
another problem we have is not really understanding the community needs. We grow up in a place, we live in a place, we make the assumption that, okay, I know what's going on, right? But we don't really do the homework to understand, what really is going on. We don't look at the data, see what the data is telling us about the demographics of a
Mm-hmm.
place, because sometimes we have a tendency to just start and assume that people are going to come just because we started something. We don't think about who else is out there doing the same thing. How many people are there who might need this service? Um, could we be duplicating what other people have? Are there some other unmet needs? So we're not necessarily putting on our business hat, right? We're
Right.
putting on that charity hat. But nonprofits are businesses. It's just a different tax structure.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, talking about the IRS reality, you've identified 13 specific reasons the IRS rejects nonprofit applications. That's a surprising precise number. What's behind it, and what surprises
Mhm.
founders most?
Yeah. So So those numbers, 13 come from personal experience working with nonprofits, as
Mhm,
well as coming from the IRS themselves. We're not going to go into all 13 because that's not what the show is about. But
mhm.
next week, if you join me, we will go into all 13.
Okay.
One of the things that the IRS is very, very clear on is they don't want people to generate personal profits from
Mhm,
charity work. So in exchange for being tax exempt, you have to, give more disclosure about your activities. And then you also have to make sure that the people who are starting the organization are not enriching themselves.
mm.
So,
Okay.
the IRS is very clear about that. They don't want to have any conflicts of interest. And if you do, they want to make sure those are disclosed. And sometimes you can't avoid conflicts of interest, but if it looks like you have so many conflicts of interest that your charitable purpose is not being
Mhm,
served, that can be a problem, right?
mm.
The IRS has disbanded organizations that look like, they were not in there for the community, but for the enrichment of themselves. So those
Right.
are a few reasons, but next week we'll go into all 13.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. So the attorney myth. A lot of aspiring founders believe they need to hire an attorney to incorporate. Is that true?
I think, okay, yes, it's true. It's a true myth. And I
Mhm,
believe, at least in the state of Illinois, they perpetuate the myth. All right. So, for example, when you start your organization, you have to go through the Secretary of State's office to
mhm.
file your um, articles of incorporation, or you go to the Attorney General's office in order to register and let them know that you're an organization, you're going to be fundraising. If you
Right.
ask the people who wrote, if they, the people who actually wrote these applications, ask them one question, you have to see an attorney. So it's kind of embedded in our minds, if the people who are actually writing these forms are sending us to an attorney, that must be the only way that we can do it. And plus, the language is so vague in some cases and so
Mhm,
specific in others, but it's language that we don't walk around using. It's almost a code. So
mm.
you feel like, wow, I really need some help. These attorneys must know what they're doing. But if you do a little bit of research, or shall I say a lot of research, because there's a lot more to the process than meets the eye. Some people much rather pay an attorney and let them deal with the headache, right? Because they also
Mhm.
know that there are consequences to not getting the paperwork right the first time or the second
Right.
time. There's some
Right.
people who actually, go on and on. They're like, uncle, uncle. But people like you and I, we know the process, and we can help folks
Right.
navigate.
And the language.
Yes, yes, yes. That's the number one thing. The language is not
Yeah.
common sense.
So the formation picture. What are you seeing in terms of nonprofit formation trends right now? Is this a good time to start a nonprofit?
Yeah, there's a good time, but it's interesting. We have, first of all, over 2 million nonprofits in the United States. There are over 6,000 nonprofits in the city of Chicago, and drilling
Mm,
down to North
that's the big
Lawndale.
number.
Yeah, and drilling down to North Lawndale, this little tiny 4-mile area, you know, depending on whether or not you include your Black clubs and churches, I mean, it's over 250. Some of
That's,
them are
yeah,
actual
that's a
tax
large
exempt
number.
organizations, and others are out there doing social services. Um, and then people say, we got so many, we don't need any more. But all you got to do is look out your window and see that the needs are still great.
That's so
So
true.
yeah, I think it's a good time to start a nonprofit.
Mhm,
However, that does not mean it's without its challenges, which
mhm,
looking at what's going on in Washington D.C. with the Trump administration, they put a lot of barriers up, but yeah, the need is still great. So it'll be a challenging time. And then you have just as many organizations going out of business involuntarily every year as you do starting in the state of Illinois, roughly. And when I say going out of business involuntarily, that means if folks have not filed their annual report, which I
Mhm.
don't know how much it costs. Is it like $15 or less, $10
Mm,
for the
Yeah, it may be about 10, possibly 15. Now, if you're late, then you're paying a large fee because
non?
they would tack those large fees on there if you're late. But if you're on time, it's just a few dollars. Mhm.
Yeah, and think about it. There are
Mhm.
people who actually lose their organizations because
Mm,
they don't think about filing, with the Secretary of State's
right.
office.
When that
Also,
letter comes in the mail.
right, right, right. So, yeah, so a lot of people actually, their organizations, they may have tax exempt status for an organization that legally doesn't exist anymore just because they forgot to fill out that form with the
Right. So
Secretary.
talking about dissolution, you've analyzed Illinois' dissolution trends. What's the data telling us about why nonprofits close?
Yeah, one of the main reasons why nonprofits close, and when we're talking about involuntary dissolution, that is when you forget to file this form, your annual report with the Secretary of State.
Mhm.
I believe you can be as late as, is it 180 days, something like that, either 180 or 240, but I believe it's 180. Um, Many people don't realize, one, that they have to fill out that form. They're so busy thinking about the
And it's
990,
very simple too.
yeah,
It's
and
very
the
simple
80,
form.
990, and they don't
Mhm,
have systems in place to remind them, right,
mhm,
of
mhm,
what it is that they have to do.
mm. Okay. So, moving on to your personal story, you had planned to launch this course earlier last summer. If
Mhm.
I understand correctly, what happened and what kept you committed to bringing this to the world?
Yeah, we had a family emergency, where they say life is lifing.
Mhm, mhm,
So I had a family emergency right around the time when we were supposed to launch, and that threw our schedule off. But my North Star has always been start this program, start this class where
mhm,
people not only understand how to navigate, the bureaucracy, but they end up with a fully compliant organization where they can hit the ground running, raising funds.
mhm,
I wish it was. Now, I say I was blessed in that when I started an organization, I had access to some of the best attorneys, some of the best
mhm,
consultants, but that is not normal,
mhm.
right? Most people are doing it by hook or by crook, and hopefully more by hook than by crook. Just learning as they go, and usually making mistakes. This class, that we're going to be launching is going to show you how to do it right the first time, and you will literally cut years off your developmental process just from taking
Wonderful,
a 3-month class.
wonderful. Tell us about the 3-day nonprofit decision sprint. What is it? Who is it for? And what will someone
Mhm.
be able to do after 3 days that they couldn't do before?
All right, so this is a free sprint, and when we say sprint, we're talking about taking a lot of information and distilling it and making a short master class out
Mhm,
of it. So the first day of our 3-day nonprofit decision sprint is going to be lane one. So that's going to be February 23rd, February 24th, February 25th. So next week, the first day is going to go over all the questions that you need to be asking yourself before you start. So often we just are so passionate about what's going on in the community. and we feel like we know this community, we have a love for the people, and there are so many problems, and we have the answer. And that's what we're focusing on. We're not thinking about the legalities. We're not thinking about whether or not we even have the capacity to do this thing, because quite frankly, it's a lot harder to start and manage a nonprofit than it is a for-profit. So
Mm,
on day one, we're going to be focusing on those things you need to ask yourself before you even start, right?
mm-hmm,
Day two, we're going to be looking in depth at those 13 reasons the IRS says no. And we may
mm-hmm.
even give you a bonus one or two additional reasons why
Okay.
they say no. Because there are people who languish, they spend over a year going back and forth with the IRS trying to do things right. I was on a Zoom call earlier. Someone says, I started this process. I started using artificial intelligence helping me through the process, and I ended up going through a maze of going back and forth, with the IRS. I'm so glad, I found you, right?
Mm,
So
wow.
that's yeah, I'm glad he found me too.
Mm,
Um, and then the third day, we're going to be looking at how you actually incorporate. So how do you start a legal organization, bona fide legal organization without an attorney? So we're actually going to go through that process online, showing people how to go through the forms, what language they need to use, what language to avoid. And if they listen carefully, they will have all the tools that they need to actually incorporate a nonprofit organization. And it won't cost them anything, and they can do it without an attorney. So
all
that's what,
right.
yeah, so that's what next week is all about. So we're going to add some value, even though it's free.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And for those who are ready to go deeper after the sprint, what comes next?
Yeah, we've got a course that, yeah, operative word there is deep. 90 days to a new nonprofit. So within 3 months, we will take you, through weekly classes. So it's an online course where once a week you have different topics that are of interest to help you start your nonprofit organization. So we will show you how to complete every form you need to complete at the state and federal level. We will
Mm-hmm.
show you how to get prepared for your first meeting of the board of directors. We have checklists, we've got workbooks. We'll show you how to develop your programs, and depending on what level you come in at, we can actually show you how to pitch your ideas to funders and give you some private um, private coaching, if you would. So by the time you get through this in 3 months, not only will you have an organization that is legally compliant, meaning that you started the organization, all of your paperwork is in order, but we will show you how to develop an evidence-based program.
Mm-hmm.
We will also show you, and when I say evidence-based program, that is a program that is proven to work. So we'll show you how to structure your program in a way that funders recognize the model and they will be willing. There's never any guarantee that you'll get funding right out the gate, but you will definitely have, a working framework, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll show you how to pitch funders as well. So a legally compliant organization, as well as an organization that can hit the ground running with fundraising. And we'll show you the next steps that you need to go through in order to make this an organization that will stand the test of time.
All right. So, if you could share some final advice with us, what's the one thing you want every aspiring nonprofit founder watching today to take away knowing?
I want them to know that it is possible to start an organization, do it the right way.
Mhm,
It is very possible to find the right board members who will help you support your journey. I want them to know that it is possible to raise money, coming out the gate. It's not going to be super easy, but we're going to help you to make it easy. All right. And even though in communities like North Lawndale, where there are many, many organizations, there's still a need. We're not doing something right. And I believe a lot of that has to do with us not coming together and collaborate. So we're seeing
Mhm.
duplication of services rather than, having somebody coordinate and we can hit more people rather than the same 4 or 5 organizations hitting the same 20 people over
Mhm.
and over.
Now, I kept hearing North Lawndale. Is this open to the entire west side? When we had
Mhm.
the building capacity, we were in a number of neighborhoods, and I had the privilege, thanks to
Yes.
you, to head up the Austin community. So
Yes.
yeah, so
And
this is for the entire west side, correct?
it is for the West Side, Chicago, really anywhere in the world.
Uh-huh.
We will show you how to do it. Because nonprofit work, NGOs is very similar. And what we will be able to do, I know the state processes, the state of Illinois, like the back of my hand, but I have worked with people in other states to help
Mm-hmm.
them get their organization started.
Nice.
And what I will be willing to do, regardless of what state you're in, to help you navigate that state's process. And even if you come from a different country,
Mm-hmm.
help you to navigate those processes in your country as well.
Mm-hmm. So, in closing, I would like to say if today's conversation has stirred something in you, if you're sitting on a nonprofit idea and wondering whether it's time, then the 3 day nonprofit decision sprint is exactly what you need, where you need to be. February 23rd, 24th, and 25th, live with Valerie. Registration details are in the comments and the link in the bio. And mark your calendars for March 2nd. The 90 days to a new nonprofit course officially launches. Don't wait. The community you want to serve can't afford for you to wait either. And thank you for joining us today with
All right.
Nonprofit Utopia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for interviewing me. I'm so used to being on the other end. All right. So thank you, Tina. And it's
Oh,
been a
you're so
pleasure.
welcome.
It's been a pleasure talking to you today. It's been a pleasure working with you on our capacity building programs on Chicago's West Side, specifically for you in the Austin community.
Yes. Thank you so much, Valerie.
All righty. Take care.
You too.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.